Yeah, go ahead, Sanjeet.
Okay. Yeah, hello. Welcome to another episode of Queen is Dead. I'm Sanjeet. I have Dhruv and Karthik with me, and today we have a very special guest with us, Mr. Rohan Naahar. He's a film reviewer, critic, chief content producer for over 6 years at Hindustan Times. So hi Rohan, how are you?
Hello. I'm well. How are you guys?
Sorry about
Good,
the
man.
beginning. I really suck at it.
Yeah, we suck at intros.
All the time.
We get gradually better, hopefully. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we've been reading your reviews for the last 5 years and everything, and I think the difference is more or less, okay, there are some people who just review a film, right? And there are some people who give you an insight towards a film. I think that is where the difference lies between a reviewer and a critic, like a guy who actually critically breaks down a film or something. So I think the first thing that we want to begin with is we want an insight into your writing process in general. And since like Dhruv was mentioning before we started this podcast, how you've been writing like a lot of reviews and everything. So does it become mechanical after a certain point, or do you still have that energy to, write something very meaningful after a point?
Oh man, that is a complicated question because I think it depends on what I'm writing about. Like certain things are yes, very mechanical, and for the life of me, I can't think of anything interesting to say about them. And that is the worst position you can be in, as someone who does this for a living. It's always good when it's the most difficult is when you're writing about something that you like, because then you want to like do justice to that and also, not shortchange yourself. Kind of want to do the best job that you can do and talk about everything that you want to. And sometimes the pressure is really, 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 it gets to your head. But that happens very rarely because there's not a lot of good stuff that's made. Most of the stuff is bad, and that is thankfully for me the easiest to write about, So, there's no process per se. It's mostly driven by panic and like stress and just getting that thing out there as soon as possible, because then more than meeting deadlines, I think it's about moving on to the next thing. So the only time I can move on to the next thing is if I finish what I'm currently working. So that is my only.
Even I've thought about when you read like a think piece on a film or something, I just wonder how long did a person spend actually, thinking about it and like actually coming up with the whole article.
That is a bit of it's slightly like ironic because think pieces, in my opinion, you can't churn one out 2 days after watching a film or the release of a film, but mostly that is what happens. You watch something and then that is in the news cycles, you're required to kind of write something. I don't write think pieces, but like most think pieces that are published within the first week of that title being released, and that's too soon, right? Think piece is like 30 years later, right? You write think piece about something that you watched like maybe when you were a child or something that has been in the public consciousness for decades and has kind of accumulated its own life. But I guess, but that is the nature of the business, these days, especially digital.
Yeah, but then have you sort of made any compromises in terms of your writing because of deadlines? Like, do you do it all the time, or is it like, has it there been like something that you've written down and like later you realize you may have?
So the deadlines are personal deadlines, the goals are personal goals. So I have only myself to blame or thank about how something turns out. I would never do that. I would never like make a compromise or something like that, because then it'll just eat at me for like years. I'll probably never forget it. That one time I didn't do justice. I might not do justice to something. I might remember something years later. I was like, oh no, I missed that. And that itself is so frustrating. So I'll try my best when I can, when it's in my control, to do what I can. The deadlines, we have embargoes on reviews, and those are in a way deadlines set by the studio or the streamer for me. I can choose to publish later, but that doesn't, it makes no sense. So I might as well meet that deadline. Those are annoying, but then on those occasions, I have a little wiggle room, so I'll get like a few days at least to hit that embargo. So that's fine. There's no pressure over there. The worst is when you watch something in the theaters and then immediately have to come back and you know
Right.
write one and then publish it. But that theater thing is also not happening in the last whatever year and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were just
Um,
talking like before the podcast, like we were just thinking about the reviews that we see most often, like say on YouTube or something. And it seems like, most of those critics, and I'm just talking about, all the mainstream, like, famous critics that are from our country. It seems like if they had just a WordPress blog where they had the liberty to publish things at their own pace, I feel like, what they would be doing would be very different because, as you said, like deadlines are a whole different thing, right? Like, am I right in thinking so? Like, if you had, your own personal pace of doing things, would you be writing about all the things that you do write about today?
In fact, more.
More.
I'll be
Oh my
doing
God.
more.
Yeah.
Because see, I want to not just cover the latest Marvel movie because everyone's going to cover the latest Marvel movie, and that is of no interest to me. The Marvel movie is the least interesting things that you can watch in the world. Sadly, because I work at a mainstream publication, I have to cover the most mainstream releases. Now, those might not align with my personal taste. My personal taste might be really, really, really weird, but then how can I justify it to a mainstream publication? Now, fortunately, I'm in the position where I can choose. I can cover the most obscure thing in the world. The most obscure thing in the world. I do have the freedom to cover it. But then I'm going to eat away at my own time. It's going to be done. I'll have to do it myself. And that is not a luxury that I have. The time is not the luxury that I have. So if I had a personal blog and no obligation, otherwise, I would just do more. I would just cover everything that I possibly can.
Well, you will. So basically, I think what Karthik was kind of alluding to, and I also am wondering now, is like, would you write about that Marvel film at all if you had the choice?
I would, of course I would. I would write about everything, Got
it. That's commitment and a lot of love for writing about films, which of course makes sense because it's your profession as such. But no,
which is a common misconception. People think that people in my profession hate films, but if we hate it, we won't do it.
That's the problem of the tag, right?
That's like the mainstream thought process of people, right? You usually end up hating things. You have a letterbox account too, right? You keep on writing reviews regularly on that. I mean, like a one-liner review at least.
Sorry?
I mean, on Letterboxd, you keep it updated, right? With those one-liner reviews.
Yeah, Letterboxd is, so I'm like, I think it's a website meant for people like me, like just obsessive, like OCD people.
Yeah.
So even before Letterboxd existed, I would like have notes on my phone, like I would just like log everything on my phone. I watched this thing that day, and then I usually have like one immediate thought, and I'm like, okay, let's just post that there about something. Yeah. I mean, that's fun though. I like Letterboxd. I wish they had like a DM feature, or maybe if they have a DM feature, if you pay for it. I'm just using the free one right now.
Maybe they'll listen to this and add it.
Highly unlikely, guys.
I mean, always hope for the best, whatever.
Yeah, aim high, man.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have this thing I want to talk about, but it's kind of antithetical to everything we've said so far. But it's just my personal experience. Like, I've basically done the whole thing of like, getting into movies and like starting to read reviews from here and there and all of that, like film criticism and like, some pieces like articles here and there. But then like at a point I kind of stopped also. Like I just stopped reading criticism. Like I just got a little tired of it, I guess. And I was just telling these guys before, like right now I don't see much value in just going to a review immediately after I see a movie. It's almost like, something is being prescribed to you almost. Like there are reviews that are written that way, but I just get that feeling. Like I just want to have that experience still in my head of what I just saw. And even if it's something like the person who's writing it is pointing out details that I didn't even notice, but then it's not like I really want that also. Like, I don't know if this makes sense. Like,
I agree with you.
Yeah. So I just wanted to know what you think about this.
I 100% agree with you, which might sound weird because this is how I do this for a living. But the first thing I say is, please don't read anything I write, which is, I shouldn't be saying that. But like my opinion is worthless. Why would you read what someone else has to say or write about a certain thing, right? It just makes no sense to me.
I
I
mean,
don't know.
I guess, man, like it's not somebody personally that I want to, ignore their work, like, whatever they're writing. It's just like generally, like I just got to a point where I was like, I just want to see the movie and then that's it. Like I just go, it's done. Like maybe it's in my head, maybe it's not. Maybe I like it, maybe I hate it.
Okay, but
just,
that's your opinion, right? Then no one can influence it, and then you don't feel pressure to kind of think a certain way. Or whatever. Yeah, I agree with it. I don't read anything myself. I mean, I don't read anything prior to writing, is my rule. I will read after I am done with my opinions. Once I've published, I will go. But then, I'll give you an example. I watched the new Clint Eastwood movie, okay? And that is a movie that is not very good. And it just didn't make me, it bored the hell out of me. And I love Clint Eastwood. I can read a bunch of stuff about Clint Eastwood, but I would never read anything about crime action. It just, I'm not interested. Interested. But for instance, I will go and read something about Malignant, even though I did not like the movie. Right. I'm like, oh, like this is something that provokes a response, and I'm interested in knowing what those responses are. Like it's going to be a divisive thing. So I'm interested. Like Kota Factory, I hate it, but I know a lot of people like it. So I'll be interested in reading a smart writer's opinion about Kota Factory and why it worked for them. If only to be kind of shown an alternate take, because I'm very clear about my opinion. Now it's like just for entertainment, right? I want to be entertained now. Now tell me what you think. But that's about very rarely. But this happens only for things that I'm actually interested in wanting to know more about. Most of the things are mediocre, like Raimacho, and I'll never think about it ever again. After watching it.
But then like once you've seen a film, written your review and everything, you're mostly clear about your opinion, right? And then you're interested in reading everyone else's pieces also, right? So like there are maybe some writers that you probably admire or love reading their writing for a film, right? Does that then influence you, or do you maybe think about what you've written about a certain film later on?
Of course, yeah. That is the only reason I will go and read someone, is to kind of recontextualize the entire experience of watching something and writing about it. That doesn't necessarily mean that I'll go back and be like, oh my god, my opinion was wrong. My opinion was my opinion, and my opinion is, because of the nature of the game, is like very like knee jerk. You know what I'm saying? You watch something and your immediate response is what you're going to end up writing about. Now there are certain films or shows that I will, change my opinion about over a few days. Not drastically, but like, I don't give star ratings, but like if it's a 3, I'll go to 3.5 or maybe 2.5, but that's about it. Very rarely. But then, I would, on those few occasions, I will want to read and find out what alternate takes are on certain things. Just for, the sake of getting some perspective. Because, it's very, people don't understand this. People expect reviews to be very, objective. It's not possible, because everyone is different and you're going to view whatever you're viewing through your lens. And my job is to convey what I feel, and that opinion is going to be based on however many years I've lived, from minute 1 to the minute I've finished writing. My opinion is based on all those factors. And that is something very complicated to convey to someone who's going to come at you and be like, "Ye kya hai, bro?" But
yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, I was wondering, so a lot of the reason why you'd go to read other people's opinions is then films, right? More so than, like, it depends on how much the film is intriguing, if that's a divisive
exactly.
film.
It's entirely about the film, or the series. If it's boring, I will never think about it again,
Got it.
If it is something interesting, if it is like The Green Knight, if it is, I would want to kind of get some opinion here and there, because there's just so much to think about, And it's always good to read, because a lot of people in, not just my profession, but generally, if you're going to be writing one movie, you should better be reading about writing. You need to be informed about your craft. This is a craft at the end of the day. So you need to, that is like the basic. People don't watch enough movies, in my opinion. And there are, I spoke to who was it, Dibakar Banerjee, and he was like, I don't watch movies. And for a second, I was stunned. I was like, what? That goes against everything that I believe in. But then you're one of the best directors in the country. He's like, I don't watch movies. That's something Karan Johar would say, you know?
Yeah.
But then there you go.
But what did he mean though? He doesn't watch current movies, or like he's just not into watching anymore?
So I'm going to paraphrase him because I don't remember exactly what he said, but he said something to the effect of watching a lot of movies is not always the best thing.
Okay.
And this was in context to a conversation about the reviews for Sandeep or Pinky Farrar, which were very divisive. So my opinion was, people who reviewed it when it came out in theaters perhaps aren't. They just reviewed it. You know what I'm saying? They were like, good, bad, thumbs up, thumbs down, calm.
Yeah.
And my opinion was like, maybe they weren't the most informed, maybe they weren't the most well-read. They hadn't really experienced a lot of, movies from here and there. And his point of view was, yes, maybe, but watching a lot sometimes is not the greatest thing.
We have a similar example though, like Sandeep or Pinky Farrar is a movie which was it shelved? What happened?
For
Sanjeet?
many years, You have no idea what happened, but I think he had some sort of fallout with Yash Raj.
I mean, we have another similar example. This was a movie supposed to have released in 2013, and it finally got released on I think Eros Now last year. It's a movie called Anwar. It was a movie called Anwar Ka Ajab Kissa. I don't know if you heard of it. I'm sure you have. So I mean, we really loved that movie, but then just the reviews on that film. I mean, I don't know what to say about it. Like, it just seems like this paperwork submitted type of stuff that was written about it. Nobody really gave it much attention. Did that come to your notice, that movie, at all?
It did not, man. Unfortunately, I haven't seen it. So I can't give you my opinion or my opinion about other people's opinion about it.
You should definitely check it out, man. Like, you should check it out for sure. Like, it's.
I will. Yeah. I mean, always up for.
It's unbutchered at Hotstar, right? One of the few movies that's unbutchered, at least.
Probably because no one who was in charge of putting it up watched it.
Basically. Yeah.
Also, you mentioned star ratings, right? Like you said, you don't give star ratings. I mean, I think I also started doing the same. Not that I'm a critic, but on Letterboxd, I mean, for 20 people who follow me. But even I just stopped doing that. Like, it just didn't make sense to me. I'd like to know why you started doing that.
I started doing. I mean, the simple answer is because my organization made an editorial call.
Okay.
There was, I think, a few years ago, we used to give star rating, but then there was some time, few years ago, where they were like, we won't do star rating. And the thought process behind it was, wonderful. Fully agree with it. Something you can't just, it's a subjective opinion. You can't just, reduce it to a star rating, which is something I always agreed with. So it kind of works for me. The long and short of it. I wouldn't have been able to do it myself. I couldn't be like, my star rating, I'm not going to give. But since the organization was on board with it, and I was like, yeah, cool.
Yeah. Does that put extra effort in coming up with headlines and sub-headlines?
Yes.
Because that's the difference, right? Because the rating otherwise does half the work of that.
It is, yeah, because not a lot of people read, unfortunately. Yep. And, I mean, I have, I can see the live data in front of me. So I can... not everyone will probably, what people tend to do is look for the star rating. If they don't find a star rating, they'll read the opening paragraph. Yep. They'll read the last paragraph. Now, for my own amusement, what I'll do is I'll just refuse to give a direct opinion in the first and last paragraph. Okay. Why should I? You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to make the first and last paragraph very, very vague sometimes. But that is only when I have that amount of luxury to kind of mess around with things. But that being said, people don't read. Certainly, the most popular Bollywood film or whatever will get a lot of hits. But that's like, Netflix telling you that 80 million people watch that movie. But how many people actually finish? How many people watch Irishman from start to finish? Who knows? But according to Netflix, 40 million people watch The Irishman. Nonsense. Similarly with what I publish, a certain amount of people must have clicked on it, but how many people actually read it? Very few. And I can kind of tell because I know how much time they spent on it, how far down they scrolled in the article. And so the headline is basically, two-factor approach. One is to get yourself ranked on Google, which is primary. If I don't get ranked on Google, then no one's going to read at all, So I have to put every effort in doing that. Secondly, I have to take a stance in the headline. I can't be vague in the headline. Because people, that's very basic human nature. If you read something, you're like, I'm not sure about what this is. If you don't why would you click on it? The headline job is just to get the person to click on it. Inside, I guarantee you, I'm gonna do whatever I can to make it engaging. But the headline is just as basic as I can.
So I just wanted to ask, like, are there any writers that you look up to in terms of criticism? Like in general, it can be internationally or in the country. Anybody who, if they put out a review on something you're interested in, like you are going to go to this person first, that type of thing.
That used to happen when I wasn't doing this professionally. So when I was just, I was in college, school, whatever, I would read a lot, and I think this is going to be a cliched answer, but then the game changed after Roger Ebert died. Now, I know in recent years, people have kind of started having second opinions about, like, they have like, maybe he wasn't that good. But as a writer, you can't, fall. Like, he's flawless, it's incredible. And he probably wrote 50 times more pieces than anyone in this country currently does. On a weekly basis, whatever, you know what I'm saying. But then once he died, so he was someone I would read regardless of whether or not I'm going to watch that ever. So it's just a random movie that I'm never going to watch, but I'll read something that he's written about. And I think that is the definition of someone that you look up to as a writer. Just read whatever they have. Now it's mostly like I said, I'll seek something out once, and then I'll read kind of a smattering of opinion. I won't read like one person or two. I'll just be like, oh, what does this person have to say? And that kind of keeps you on your toes as well, because you know what's good and what's bad. Similarly with like films, if you don't watch bad films, you don't know what's good. Similarly, if you like don't know what bad writing is, then you don't know what good is.
So just to talk about Ebert, like even I used to do that in like school and college, just go read like Ebert's review of whatever I'm watching. Like I remember reading about Darjeeling Limited and Ebert's review of that, and he recommends this R.K. Narayan book in the end, and I was like, oh, this is great. And like one of the things I heard somewhere that was told about Ebert is like he kind of put the film into perspective, as in like if you're watching a movie for the first time and maybe you don't know about the history of film, like you don't know what preceded this that has influenced this particular film that you have just watched. So I think, is that something you also try to do, as in like, from your knowledge of films, like do you put this into perspective, like, if a movie has like say a predecessor which did the exact same thing, but then most audiences don't know about it, do you try to communicate that at all? Like I think just from a reader's perspective, that's like a great thing if a critic does that, I think.
That's a good question. Whatever sentence I write, it has to come with context. As for an example, like I'll give you a very basic example. I can't go and say XYZ is a good movie, because your next question will be, why is it a good movie? Similarly, if, for instance, I watch a movie, and like you said, I was reminded of 15 other things, and I'm instantly comparing this particular movie to those 15 other movies. There is no way I would not write that, because that is informing my opinion. I don't know if it will inform your opinion, but then it has informed my opinion. And I can't go out and say that, oh, this is, familiar, it's predictable or whatever, without telling you why it's familiar. It's familiar because I've seen it 15 times. Here. Now, once I've said that, what's the next question? Next question is, okay, you've seen this before. Why are you saying this is better? Or that was better? So I'm like, okay, that person did this, and this is why, I prefer this, that. So it's just like an endless thing, but whatever sentence you write has to come with some amount of context. You have to kind of justify the existence of that opinion by offering, a reason for its existence. I don't know what I'm saying, but yeah, basically.
No, makes sense. I think, but
Makes sense, yeah.
what with the Ebert thing is probably that he makes his way of writing kind of makes it seem more universal than
That is
it
magic,
probably.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, that is, yeah.
Because he is the most informed person in the room,
Yeah.
and he's also the most approachable person. That's the vibe, and that is the ultimate vibe to strike. You can also be like, he's not talking. This is the worst thing someone in my profession can do, is talk down to the reader. Oh, yeah, your opinion is bad. You're a dumb person. Because who are you to say anything?
Yeah.
And that is what he did. He can be approachable. He can talk about the stupidest Adam Sandler movie, but then he'll say this movie is stupid. He'll say Adam Sandler is stupid for doing it, and Adam Sandler is stupid for doing 15 of those movies. But then he'll never point the finger at the audience and be like, "You are stupid for watching this," which I think is something to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, nowadays especially, and we can jump to more online criticism in general, more than just interviewing Rohan now and grilling him about his writing process. So I think it's
which does not exist. There's no writing process, as we've established.
Yes. So we'll just move on to the online criticism bit, which is like, how does one actually go about selling is probably the wrong word here, but like, how does one go about promoting themselves without having those, catchy, the part where I was talking about the fact that, the Roger Ebert didn't have that condescending tone to it, but the problem nowadays becomes that when you put something out on Instagram or Twitter or anything, like, the short form of writing kind of invites a lot of people to give that verdict, so like, as a critic, do you purposely sort of avoid these platforms? You try and sort of navigate them in a way where you don't promote, extreme opinions in that sense? Like, I am curious about that, considering I also struggle with sort of...
You're asking if I publicize my opinions about certain things on social media?
Publicize in a sort of, I mean, just to get people to watch, you said, right? Or to read, you have to like publicize it in a verdict sort of way, that this is correct, this is wrong, this is good, this is bad, like that. Like, how do you navigate that as a writer? Like, yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if I'm fully following the question, but for instance, I don't have much of a social media presence.
You don't.
And I don't like. I just stopped tweeting. Like, initially, also I would just plug my links, and that would be that. Unless something like really riled me up or someone said something, I can't help myself. But I'm beyond that now as well. Like, I just there's no point. You're literally just one drop in like this huge ocean. There's no reason, like I said at the beginning of this episode of your podcast, there's no reason why anyone should take me serious or anyone else. You know what I'm saying? So by that same logic, like, I don't take anyone serious. So why should anyone take me seriously? So I'm just over social media. A lot of people in my profession rely on social media heavily to kind of like do exactly these things. To get people to engage with them, read what they've written, watch what they've like a video or something. So they do that, and all in evidence suggests that those people are more successful. But so yeah, there is a valid reason why that happens, and there is like tangible proof that it works. Well, it's just something I'm not interested in right now.
I mean, that's admirable, and you did follow the question and answer it just to like.
No, but I'm lucky also because I have a very huge organization that I work for. If I was like a solo person, like I was like a freelancer, or had my own blog, then I would be compelled to. Like, I can't imagine me being me like this.
Yeah.
If I didn't have the the platform that organization gives me. Although that is the organization. Everyone who reads whatever I've written is because of the organization, not because of me. Anyone who gives me any sort of attention, any sort of studio or a company or whatever, that's because of the organization I work at. Tomorrow, if I'm not there, no one's going to think of me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That is,
I think you mentioned like,
valuable perspective to have.
I think you mentioned like, getting ranked high up in Google also, right? So I think if somebody's like a freelance blogger or they're just writing on their WordPress blog, that is, I think, the most difficult thing to do, Because I mean, if you just read about it, it's just like, it's very difficult to understand. You gotta put like keywords in there or like tags.
No, but then no, I'll tell you what happens is if you're a WordPress blogger, you cannot you cannot rely on
Right.
Google to get you your hits, right? The smart thing to do is to cultivate your own audience. Now you are in a better position than I am, because the people who read you for you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
People who read me for HT. 99.9%. I mean, I'm sure there'll be 1% of the audience who's.
All
But
three of
most
us,
people,
man.
that is very cool. But then, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I owe it to my organization to rank number 1 on Google. Right. That is my job. I have to do that. If I don't do that, I'm screwed. But you, as a WordPress blogger, all you need to do is publicize your own writing on your own platform and cultivate a loyal reader base. You don't have to compete with mainstream publications. I have to compete with mainstream publications. Your source of, the avenues through which you're getting your audience are going to be completely different from mine. And this happens even with digital media organizers. Like, I will compete with the Times of India or an Indian Express to an extent. But say a First Post will not compete with me because it doesn't make sense for them, right? Because they can't. A film companion cannot compete with an HT. It doesn't make sense. So they will cultivate a loyal readership.
Do you, and this is going back to you, I know, but in general, do you crave that as a writer, like wanting that loyal fan base, or is it fine now to accept the fact that that organization sort of propels your writing more so than you are sure that you have cultivated?
I mean, see, here's the thing. It's again very complicated, but a good question. The first thing that I need to kind of, establish is that, like I said, tomorrow if I'm not with the organization, no one's going to care. Okay. If I cultivate my own readership, it's obviously gratifying, and it's something that will probably be very, very. It'll motivate me and motivate me for the right reasons. Like right now, I owe my company certain things, and that is my motivation. It's not to say that it's bad, because I'm able to, put out a lot, and I'm happy with what I'm putting out. But then my motivations will change if I'm writing just for myself. Part of me craves it, but then, like I said, if I don't have the organization, then it's basically no one cares,
A great publicity thing for all the critics out there. No one cares. I mean, I want to go into criticism myself, which is why I understand what you mean.
I mean, see, I would like to imagine this fantasy world where people care and people care about what you have to say. But then you have to also, like, I'm come from a very cynical point of view about everything. That is earned, and that is earned when you, like you said, you publicize yourself, you're active on social media, you have to do a million other things. Like, critics nowadays have their own PR machinery, which is, to someone who doesn't even have social media friends, that is bonkers. Like, to reach that level of, like, dedication to your... I never imagine myself doing that. You know what I'm saying?
No, that
so
makes sense.
I'm in a way sacrificing a loyal reader base.
I mean, that's okay. Change the organizations from the inside out, right? That's the way to go about it. I mean, your writing, honestly, it's me and Sanjeet were especially discussing this before also. Like, your writing has, one of the things that I really appreciate is examples. Like, that's the one big thing that is not there in criticism, which is like a shock to me. Like, why would people write that? You were saying, right, that writing, this is good and this is bad, and one of the things that you do is actually say why is it good and why is it bad. And that's missing from, like, publications who are, like, well reputed and all also. So, like, I think those small incremental changes itself, I think, will be, like, enriching. Just to,
because I read this Neil Gaiman non-fiction book many years ago, and something stuck out to me because it was connected to what I do. And he said, basically, he was talking about his critic buddies, and he said, he basically explained the difference between a reviewer and a critic. So he said a reviewer is someone who tells you if something is good or bad. A critic is someone who tells you what they felt. So Words to live by.
Yeah, no, makes sense. Makes sense. I mean, to me at least it does. Hopefully to everyone else also. I mean, my aim also whenever I write or whatever, I've not done any like publications or anything, but like I've written reviews in general. But like the aim is always to like say why or answer why something good or bad versus like what I think you can just answer in a conversation like this. I think like I can tell you that Sher is bad, but what else?
Why is it
it bad? Exactly. Uh, going back to our Sher
It sounds very basic, yeah. But like obviously, like you have to explain why something is bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've come to the point where people don't, and that's just fine. Like no one cares. Like I'm saying, no one cares.
Yeah.
We should title this episode that no one cares. Film criticism, online film criticism.
All right, man. So we just wanted like a quick insight into whatever you do. So thanks for accepting our invitation to come on.
Wait, I have one more question. Sorry.
Man.
It was lagging on my end. Sorry.
Was that prematurely wrapping up?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, wait. One question I have.
Go ahead.
Okay, so this is more of a personal question, like.
Oh yeah,
like,
I know what you're gonna ask. Yeah.
What? Okay, I already told you.
Go ahead.
So okay, for over the years we've been viewing movies and everything, right? And I think with every year you've seen probably like 200-300 movies more than you did the last year. So like for me personally, this, and I just want to know, does it happen to everyone else who's like writing reviews? Is like I used to view, like for example, let's say a Salman Khan movie, okay? And one was extremely, critical of his films, right? Like extremely critical, like whatever he did. Like there was some few highs, like those slightly bumps that looked like highs, but whatever. But now, for example, let's say his last few films, they've sort of been like a parody of his like his filmography in general, right? I mean, I don't know if they intend to be parodies, but they are sort of parodies. So how does one be critical of them? Because I mean, the probably the bad part is obviously, visible to anyone watching it. Then what do you write in a piece that people sort of end up reading and get something more out of it?
I mean, Salman Khan is a funny example because zero people in the world are reading reviews of Salman Khan movies.
Exactly. So, like, how do you make people read something and that there's something different to look at?
So I would go all out because I know that the movie is so dumb and the movie is deliberately dumb. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's lazy. Like, let's take Radhe, for example.
Yeah.
I watched Radhe, okay. And for fun, I watched it. I didn't watch it for work. I'm just like, you have to, like I said, you have to watch the bad. So I'm watching Radhe and my brain, because it's trained now in a certain way, I'm like coming up with like, I'm writing in my head while I'm watching it. And that is something I can't avoid, at least right now. So I'm like, this is fascinating. So he's doing like a Justice League Flash thing in the beginning. That's how he's introduced, which is a weird pull. Like that is a deliberate pull, right? He's watched Justice League and he's like, I want to do that. Right. So that is an insight into Salman Khan's thought process, which is fascinating to me. Then there is just this weird idea that Jackie Shroff is playing the brother to someone who is like 30 years younger. So I'm like, why? Like, how did their parents? What happened there? And so I'll just like fixate on certain things. But then see, when you're writing, it depends on what sort of writer you are. You can actually take it seriously and offer like a criticism of like the last decade of Bhai's downfall and explain why. Like laziness, just he knows he can get hurt. Smugness is there, because he knows he can, he can earn a certain amount of money. That leads to, just Bollywood in general, because most movies are made for money and not because someone has something to say. So it's like a never ending, like Pandora's box that you keep on opening and it'll just open like fascinating conversations. Or you can just be like, it's a trash movie and just go about your day.
I mean, that is what most people did, right? They labeled it as illogical. And I was like, no, this is not illogical. Like, why would you call this film illogical?
But that is again something that everyone who made that movie knows it's a bad movie, right? So how do you counter that? You know what I'm saying? Some people make bad movies deliberately. He wants to make a dumb movie. That is in itself a fascinating idea to me, right? How do you start off wanting to make a stupid movie. They proudly say that हम rickshaw वालों के लिए बनाते हैं, but you're condescending rickshaw walas. Yeah, are you saying that every rickshaw wala is dumb, as you are? Incorrect.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
I would like fully point fingers.
So another question that I had was, do you like watching films in theaters in general versus what you've been watching on
This is a
OTT?
huge ongoing discussion that we have. It happens almost on every episode. So yeah, man, please chime in.
See, I've grown up watching things on my laptop. I don't mind.
Yeah.
And I think most people have watched movies at home. Like, it's an expensive kind of, we forget this. It costs money. You know what I'm saying? And especially when you're younger, you don't have money. So a lot of people at that impressionable age, especially if you're interested in world cinema, we can't source it. How do you get your hands on what you want to watch? Once you have gotten your hands on it, then you watch it on a small screen. You appreciate what it is. Now, if you were to watch it on the big screen, I'm sure that would enhance the opinion or at least change it.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go and say that, it makes no difference. I've seen certain movies that I've hated and slightly enjoyed more on the big screen and vice versa.
Yeah.
So that just indicates that there is a difference. Now, it's not, a massive difference, because at the end of the day, if it's engaging, then it will engage you regardless. You know what I'm saying? And usually the kind of people who say that, oh, this is a big screen experience, etc., right? Because not a lot else going on maybe besides like drone shots.
I mean, I'm totally with Rohan here, to be honest. Sanjeet,
No, but then he also spoke about that enhances your, viewing experience.
It can enhance, but it's not the primary thing, I think.
Okay, no. So
here's also what I want to point towards is like, let's say a Tenet came out last year, right? And we know it's like, I mean, the general opinion has been sort of mixed, right? And it's not that I absolutely love that film or I completely understand that film. But what happened was I watched it twice in theater, but every time it's that experience is so overpowering. It's almost like overwhelming at points that I sort of can't really point out what negatives or like flaws are there in a film like that. So does that happen to you as well?
Sometimes, especially with like Marvel movies. You watch a Marvel movie at home, I guarantee you will get bored in the first act. I'm talking about most Marvel movies, not obviously like, the good ones.
Yeah.
But then you watch that, and especially this happened in the last year where you had the power to pause,
Yeah.
And then that is a true indicator, because I'm pausing everything. So, I mean, what does I have to say about the movie? If you're pausing everything, then that's not a good place to be in. Now, if I'm watching like The Five Bloods, it's 2.5 hour movie, not pause it a single time, that is victory. Now, I don't care if I watch it in the big screen. It's already won. You know what I'm saying? It might be different. Certainly, I would assume it's different because of just how it's made. But then it's a 5-star movie already for me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Tenet, I assume that it's one of those that will kind of fool you into thinking that it is more important than it is. Just if you watch it on the big screen. But then if you watch it on the small screen, all the flaws come out. Right?
I think if I watched it on the big screen, all the flaws would have come out regardless. Like,
so
I think so.
Second, pause.
Yeah.
Rewind.
The film itself is rewinding. So how many layers of rewinding will there be?
But then again, you watch Dunkirk on the big screen, and I'm sure that movie is something that is impossible to enjoy on an equal level on the small
I'll tell you, I watched it on the plane on the tiniest screen, and I've enjoyed it as much, which is why my go-to is always that you will be able to enjoy these films regardless of screen size.
Well-told story, you're engaged, then it doesn't matter. But then Dunkirk on the IMAX screen or on the we have in India, that's a great experience.
But isn't like the experience like your primary goal as a watcher?
Yeah.
But then there's also there's this whole brigade. I mean, I'm not pointing towards anyone. I mean, we've had this discussion before also of these quote unquote social issues being interjecting, right? So does it also matter to you that those social issues incline with your politics, or does the experience is primary and then that thing comes second?
I mean, I'll see. Of course it does. Like I said, like we spoke about earlier, everything is your opinion and your
So if a movie does not align with what I believe in, I can appreciate the craft. Maybe I can be like,
Yeah,
oh, that's a nice costume.
Mm.
But then I'm not watching a movie on like for its costume. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
So if I watch like what's that Padmavat or something,
Mhm.
like, okay, that's a nice costume. But like you're like kind of making the villain an animal, uh, and I don't like it. So I'm gonna kind of say that.
Yep.
Yeah. No, but then this is the last thing that I want to ask you about. Do you also like, shouldn't that also be like how you spoke about Padmavat, right? Shouldn't that also be your intent? You should interpret what probably the director would want to say. Maybe the director wanted that animal thing to maybe
Yeah, and that's
be
worse.
on the forefront.
That's worse. If he deliberately it's all deliberate, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
if he deliberately wanted to make the Muslim villain, and Khilji was like a learned man. So if he's
yeah.
deliberately gone out of his way to make him a barbarian, that says more about
Yeah.
him than me. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
that's a problem to me. And that we've seen how that problem has amplified in the years since Padmavat.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Almost
so,
every historical film has had that.
correct. So if you kill it before it lays eggs, just stop it there. Because people were like, oh wow, what costumes, must be a good movie. What sets, must be a good movie. What a performance by Ranveer, must be a good movie. Look where that just look where that's brought us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm done. Karthik now.
It's an event film, must be a good movie, right?
है ना, पैसे खर्चे हैं, 100 crore रुपए कमा लिए, must be a good movie.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's
that's the other one.
the most common thing. Yeah. Made
So-
a lot of money. Like 300 crores is massive.
Yeah, so like part of my job is also to be like no, 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 and no, you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, certain people are predisposed to liking certain things based on what their idea of success is, and in our country, especially, idea of success is money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Regardless of who you are, where you come from, where you're going. If you spend more money on something, it must be good. If you earn more money for it, must be good. You know, it's the equivalent of someone saying कि मैंने body बनाई for an acting role. Like, how, what, why? You know, why?
Yeah.
Right. So can we wrap it up?
Yeah.
Okay. So thanks, Rohan, man, for coming and telling us about your thoughts on criticism and everything else in general. Like, we're huge fans of yours, and we are the one person who actually read your reviews for you. So
Amazing. I'm so
yeah. So I mean, we look forward to everything you write, and yeah, I mean, thanks for coming, man.
Yeah. You can follow him on Letterboxd and Twitter, and check out his podcast on Spotify, which is good.
thanks for the plug. All the best to you guys.
Yeah.
Remember,
And-
nothing matters. No one cares.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will stop recording now. I just
He is crazy about my roller skates.
She goes crazy over my double take.
He is crazy about my dizzy spin. And I go crazy just watching him, you bet. He is crazy about me. As crazy as where